From the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina, this is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, presented by a cloud guru, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Just me today. Last week before the Krispy Kreme run, Aaron is out traveling and I assume training and running and getting himself ready to go run and eat donuts, and obviously we're getting very close to our fundraising goal of $3,000. So thank you to everybody who has been making contributions and donations. It is very well. We are humbled every year that people are willing to do that. And thank you to everybody who's made donations. Listen, one of the things, if you heard our year-end show, was we said we're really interested in expanding our audience, not only just for audience, but we want to learn what's going on around the world around cloud computing. The world doesn't revolve around Raleigh or Silicon Valley or anything else for that matter. And one of the things we're excited about is some people have reached out to us and said, hey, we would love to tell you about our part of the world. And so today we're very, very excited to have a couple of folks who run a podcast called CloudTalk. They are based out of Israel. So I'm really excited to have Ariel Munafo and Amit Dunsky. Excuse me. I apologize for that. But guys, welcome to the show. Excited to have you on today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I am Ariel Munafo.
Yeah, and I'm Amit Dunsky. Hi to all of your listeners.
Yeah,
really honored to be with you.
Yeah, and we're gonna do this show as kind of a dual show. So we're gonna release it both as a Cloudcast episode and a Cloud Talk episode, and we're just gonna kind of interview each other, get to know what the cloud landscape looks like in Israel, compare it to the United States, kind of compare how we're learning. And so excited to have both of you on today, and excited for the conversation.
So okay. Brian, great honor to talk to you today. Thank you for having this joint podcast with us.
I'm excited to be on. Thank you for having me. I when you reached out, I was very excited to try and learn about why you're doing the podcast, learn more about the Israeli market, and really we're very interested in learning more about what goes on in the cloud around the world. And so this is a really exciting opportunity for us.
Yeah. Well, when we first started this podcast, it was only 12 episodes ago. 12 episodes ago, I started listening to all kind of podcasts around the world, and I soon bumped into your podcast. And your podcast was actually a great inspiration for ours.
Well, good. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, this is one of the things that we started thinking, how we do it and how much time per week, per month, and stuff like this. We really, I at least heard like 50 or more, and really try to to understand how we can make the best podcast that we can for our listeners. Yeah,
it's you realize that it's a lot of work, and most of us do this as a hobby, not as a job. So you want to be as efficient as possible, but you want to try and give your listeners the best experience possible. It's amazing how much people want to trust you, and you want to make sure that it's worth their time, and you give them good audio quality and interesting guests and good conversation. So it's great that you guys are making this happen. And I've looked through the shows that you've had, listened to them a little bit, what I can in English, and the topics and conversation have been great. So congratulations so far.
Okay, so we gave a title to this joint podcast. We called it How Global the Cloud Really Is. So here's my thought. I mean, the cloud by definition should be really global, very agnostic. Doesn't matter where you are, and so on. But the thing is that as we see, we have local communities here, and most of the communities are centered around here, around this region, around this Israel. Although they're using other regions outside of Israel, because there's no local region here for any of the providers, the cloud providers. But still, the community is quite closed, and other than companies that are working on the US or outside Israel, most of the people are here, they're talking to each other. Maybe it's a language barrier, I don't know. But this is what we see here. A gathered community here. How is it on your side?
Yeah, so I think the United States is, I think from the rest of the world, sometimes people might look at it as, the United States sort of has one culture around technology. Sometimes, in the United States, we look at maybe Europe or Asia as sort of maybe it only has one because it's got one label. I think the realities that we see in the United States are it is very regional. So what happens, the technology, kind of the pace of technology in Silicon Valley is very, very unique from the rest of the country. So we sort of have pockets. Silicon Valley is very unique. The Seattle area, obviously, because Amazon Web Services is there. Most of the large cloud providers are basing a lot of their engineering there. That's somewhat unique. And then there's kind of a second tier of technology companies or technology regions. So that tends to be like Boston, Massachusetts, Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, Austin, Texas, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There's 4 or 5 sort of second tier ones. And what that means is, at least in the United States, companies tend to kind of follow the pace of innovation of sort of where they are. So if you're in Silicon Valley, you always feel like you have to be going, say, 1,000 miles an hour. Maybe if you're in a different part of the country where technology isn't following you 24 hours a day and your neighbors don't work in technology, maybe you feel like you only have to go 100 miles an hour. And so I think what we find is around the world everything becomes sort of regional. But we get, at least in the United States, we get enamored with Silicon Valley so much, and I think sometimes we feel like we have to chase their pace of innovation, and maybe it's not always relevant to the business.
Yeah, in Israel, because we are small, there is, like Amit said, this like one big community, but it's also divided into startups and enterprise.
Right.
And when you talk about startups, they go cloud by definition, cloud first, and they don't think about something else. But in the enterprises, we are, I think, a little late, slowly adapters, and this is something that I am trying to fight where I advise and I work, but really this is like two different regions in one region. The one that wants to go to the cloud, and the others that doesn't want.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah, I think from an outsider's perspective, I look at Israel as pound for pound, given the amount of startups that have come out of there, the sort of deep technology knowledge that starts in, say, the Israeli military. I mean, so much around security and encryption and systems and so forth that it feels a little bit like a small Silicon Valley, at least in terms of the number of startups, companies that come out of there, some of the really innovative technology ideas. So there's a feeling that it fits. It's sort of up to par, in terms of quality of technology, quality of engineers. But yeah, we see the exact same thing in the United States. It's companies that have large installed base of enterprise technology, or maybe aren't in a Silicon Valley, they don't tend to move as quickly. And it's for different reasons. Sometimes it's regulatory, sometimes it's just culture, sometimes they just have a lot of legacy that doesn't need it. So yeah, I think we feel the same pain that you do, in that you wish everything would move as fast as the startups, and but the reality is it's the enterprise is just not their inherent culture. They're trying to get better, but it's not their inherent culture to want to move as fast as the startups.
Yeah, there is also another thing that you as Americans, you can use a region or more than a region that is in the States. So for the regulations, you have an advance for the enterprise and the government that we don't have, and we are paranoid sometimes with the security.
Right. Yeah, we are. I think we're sort of we're unique in, if we're talking about the public cloud, for example. we do have more sort of local regions that are in country. So we don't really think about too much, kind of locality of data. I mean, we do from the perspective of, like delay for bandwidth or, latency for an application, but not like there are in a lot of the regions of the world where, maybe in Europe, for example, there's only, maybe a handful of points of presence that you could get to Amazon Web Services, or, there's not one in the major city of where you're at. So we have that. And then I think United States is not as far along, and so maybe it's for good reasons or bad reasons. Like, we don't have the same issues that like Europe is going to have now with this GDPC, GRPD, the kind of the data protection, data origination, all the laws that are happening around that. So we're a little looser about some of that. So I guess that's good for innovation. But then what happens is when there's a hacking, everybody gets super paranoid. So sometimes it'll swing in the other direction. People are very worried about losing their credit card data these days.
So Israel is a small place, and we do have offices here of the major cloud providers. We have offices of Google, of Amazon, of Microsoft, Oracle, and I think it's also on the way.
Alibaba, they are only in R&D, but hopefully they will come also.
Yeah. Okay. So being such a small place, we tend to know people personally, and this personal connections with the guys, with the people on the cloud providers, that helps us here. How's your connection with the cloud providers personnel?
I think it's mixed. We're on the podcast. We're very lucky in that we've established ourselves enough that we can typically reach out to people and say, hey, can we ask you questions? Would you come talk to us about certain things? If I was representing, say, a corporation and saying, what's my relationship with a Google or an Azure or an AWS? I think the companies are still trying to figure that out. Obviously all of them would like to win their business, and they're happy to come talk to them. And, but it's still very different culture of, I own my data center. I can go in my data center and point to a box and say, that's where my data is, or that's where my compute is. And, I understand I know the guards, and I know, how many bullets they have in their guns and physically where they're located. The cloud providers, while they're willing to talk to you about, say, your technology, I think people are still not completely sure they understand, what does it mean to really outsource your whole data center and the security around that and the physical. So it's, lots of engineering conversations, but sometimes the next level conversations are still somewhat difficult because it forces the cloud providers to give up a bunch of details that they're not necessarily want to made public. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. But we do. I mean, the other thing that we have a lot in the United States, and I assume you have them quite a bit in Israel, is the culture around learning technology has gotten better. So we have a lot of meetups. So you can almost go to every major city in the United States. If you go to some website like meetup.com and type in some technology area you're interested, maybe you're interested in containers or databases or Bitcoin or blockchain or kind of anything that's out there, there's typically a meetup group that will meet anywhere from once a week to once a month at, a local building or a bar or a school. And you can find people that have common interest as you. So, that culture of kind of being open and sharing and kind of solving problems is becoming very, very prevalent. So I feel like the barrier to being able to learn is very, very low these days. It's just a matter of making your own time and having a willingness to learn or play around with new software or something. Is that similar? Do you have a lot of meetup culture in Israel?
Yes. In fact, I built the biggest cloud computing community here in Israel.
Okay.
It's called the Israel Cloud, and it was before a year ago. And we started to have, our meetups, and then the other ones have another meetups. And now we have, I think, 2 or 3 meetups per month, but there are a lot of groups here in Israel. If you say like one in each city, here you have like 10 in our main area, that is Tel Aviv area, and there's too much. And I think that this is something that started, like you said, being in a bar or in a coffee or something like this, and it started to be here. They want to make also business about the meetups, and it's really too much about those kind of meetups lately.
Oh, okay.
And I think, here in Israel, everything is around sometimes money and not, really to educate. This is something that I am trying to, to fight and to lead. That if you do a meetup and not, trying to sell and stuff like this.
Yeah.
I think that here in Israel, Amazon are very thinking in this way, and this is what I like about it. If you have a community and you have an evangelist, educate, go to people, talk, and try to give what you have, and not use the meetups to really sell.
Right.
Amit, do you think like me?
Yeah, I do think I like you, and I also think, I'd like to talk to you, Brian, about technology conferences, because I heard your episode about the event. Wasn't so happy with the conference. Now, when there is a technical conference, big technical conference in the US, for us it's an event. We hop on a plane, fly like 12 hours, and be there for a week or 2 days. And for you, I know it's just around the block. So, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's a good. You bring up a couple of good points. I think to the previous point about the meetups. One of the things that we've a lot of the good communities, and good. When I mean good, I mean the ones that continue to have people come back, not necessarily a reflection on technology, good or bad. They've been very adamant about saying, these are not going to be sales events. If a company wants to sponsor the event, buy drinks or buy pizza or something, they're happy to let them do that and maybe give a little plug and say, hey, come to our website. But the organizers are very strong about saying we're not going to allow talks about selling stuff. So I think you can have a good community, a strong community, and push back on that. So if you're beginning to do that, I think you'll find people are very at least the attendees are open to that. Regarding events, we're very spoiled here in the United States in that the events are always, there always tends to be a version of the event here in the United States. Maybe we only have to travel 3 or 4 hours or 5 hours to get there. Maybe if it's on the West Coast. I am happy to see more and more of the vendors doing events where maybe their main event is in the United States, but they'll do a regional event, a month later, or follow up regional events, and I think that's good. I know from when I travel in your direction, when you have to travel 10, 12, 15 hours, your body is it's so out of whack. The time zones are. Yeah, you get dehydrated and the food is different and you're tired and you just can't concentrate for very long all day. And so I'm happy to see them doing that. I'm happy to see them recording sessions more so. So if you didn't get to, you attended it, but you didn't get to go to one, you could always follow up. I think our disappointment is not so much in the vendors running them, because they continue to run bigger and bigger events, which I guess is good. It means the technologies are growing. We always long for the idea that you're going to get great networking. You're going to meet lots of people. You're going to have time to do that. You're going to have time to be a geek and be an engineer and learn things. And you're going to have time to, enjoy the city. And it's hard. And maybe that's just our frustration, saying, I wish we could keep doing everything and the events feel small, but, we have consolidation around some of the clouds, and so their events get very big, which it's just a byproduct of how fast the cloud's growing.
Yeah, here in Israel also you have our meetups, and there are every vendor has in the public cloud has its own event here in Israel, I want to talk about with you about your agreement or sponsorship with a Cloud Guru, because one thing that I think that at least in Israel, that doesn't help to enterprises and big companies to go to the cloud is the education.
Yeah,
like one of the people that started to be interested in the cloud computing, like Amit, 7 or 8 years. It seems that for them that that everybody knows and everybody has the knowledge, and it is not true. So this is something that I try to do. This is why I built also the community. We have a portal in Hebrew, and just to hear you talking about the things that a Cloud Guru say, that the most people that came to the courses are the beginners.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think that we should do more, like a community here at least.
Right. Yeah. So we do. We work with this company called aCloud. If you go to acloud.guru, that's their website. And we met them at a meetup. I can't remember. It's been maybe over a year now. We met them, and Aaron and I, my co-host Aaron Delp and I, we knew a lot of people that were in, say, like the virtualization community, or they were in different communities, and they were constantly frustrated with, they would have to spend their own money. They would go and buy equipment. They would have to find a place in their house to run it. It would run up the electricity bill. The room would get really hot. Like their house would become a data center, and it was constantly breaking, and they were constantly spending time fixing it. And like it felt like they spent more time being frustrated than learning. And then we met the aCloud Guru folks, and we really we were fascinated with them building this platform that kind of took away all the pain. It was still going to be very much focused on training, and at the time they were just focused on AWS, and now they cover a lot of different topics, which is really great. And they're now allowing people to contribute courses, sort of independent. So if you are really smart on a topic, you can build a course and help teach people. But it was just, the idea that you can do it online. It's really inexpensive. I mean, a course costs what a few cups of coffee, cost. You don't have to maintain any equipment. You can stop and start whenever you want. Like we just feel like it's great that you can now kind of do training the same way that you would use cloud computing. It's on demand. You don't have to have resources. And it's still ultimately, you have to be eager to learn. You have to be curious to learn. And you have to find time. And that, I think, is the biggest challenge, is just, we all have daily lives, or we have families. And, but if you're committed to your career and you want to grow your career, like, you have to invest in it just like you invest in anything else. So, if people like it, that's great. But yeah, we see the exact same problem in the United States. Is there's so many neat technologies, and it's just finding time for people to learn them and see if they're applicable to their jobs or their career or whatever. Now, now I'll flip the question around. Have you found, you're covering cloud computing, it's lots of technologies. Have you found anything that works best for you as you're trying to learn?
That's a good question.
Amit know it all, so he doesn't need to. I myself, started, I think before 2 years to learn with aCloud Guru. Okay. This is what I also liked it. And I think this is, where the future goes, because we are all busy. We have almost everyone our day job, and the ones that really wants to keep being technologists and lead their companies to a better place, then they need to learn. And this is the platform, I think.
Yeah.
Also, I can tell you that we do have conferences here, technical conferences. Mere technical conferences. We have AWS Summit coming in soon, and there's also the Microsoft conference. And although it's partly commercial, partly technical, they do push you to learn more, to be updated. I mean,
right.
At least with AWS, I know they give you credits to go to the course and have their certifications done, and they do tend to support education. So it's also a factor here.
Yeah. Well, it's look, if you are interested in technology, it used to be there were really big barriers to get into technology. Maybe you had to go to the right university, you had to study computer science, or you need to have money to buy equipment that you could test on. And there's just a lot of those barriers are gone now. The biggest barrier is just time. So it's great in that context. And the downside of it is, you always feel a little bit guilty, like, oh wow, I'm not keeping up with, I'm not spending enough time learning this stuff. It's all growing so fast or changing so fast. And the advice I give everybody is, pick one thing a year, or if you're really ambitious, pick two things in a year, and just carve up enough time to learn that one new thing. And honestly, if you learn that one thing for the year, you're probably you're going to be ahead of 80% of your colleagues and so forth. So it's, it's great to be ambitious, but, be realistic too. Otherwise you'll feel like you're letting yourself down, or you're letting your family down because you're not learning enough new things, or you're letting your job down or something. Be realistic about what you can learn.
Yeah. I think, being professional in cloud or any other area, you don't have to know everything. You just know where to bring information from.
Right. Well, and the great thing about it is, and you guys are doing this with the podcast, and you're doing it with the meetup events, is, half the battle is, okay, admit that you don't know certain things, but who can I ask? And get to know those people. Reach out to them. That was really how we started our podcast. Was we said, there's lots that we don't know. And yes, we could go learn it, but if somebody will give us, a pointer, give us 30 minutes of their time and teach us, we'll learn something. The community will learn something. So what you're doing in terms of, spending the time making the podcast, spending the time doing the community, it's going to pay off for a lot of people, yourself included, because you're going to get to know those people that know things that you don't know, and you can kind of trade with them. They don't know certain things that you know. And so that's the other great thing, is people are really open these days about sharing their knowledge, writing down their knowledge, making a podcast, making a video. We're really excited about all of that.
Yeah. So you mentioned your podcast. And, interesting. How do you have a living goal? Do you have a vision? How do you select what to talk about, who to talk about, who to talk with?
It's a great question. It's we sit down sometime, usually around the beginning of the year, and we make a big map. We sit down on our whiteboard and we kind of make a big map of all the things that we would love to talk about. And sometimes we align them to the big trade shows. So we say, oh well, Amazon's events at the end of the year, but I think what we find is, because we do it every week, stuff changes so much. Sometimes it's hard to schedule people at a specific time. So I don't know. We always try and find a balance. We try and find some things that are pretty new and hot and in a lot of the headlines, because people are kind of like, oh, I'm interested in that. And then sometimes we sort of step back and we say, I don't think we've covered something very well. Let's go back and do the basics, and let's go find somebody who's really smart. And so I don't know that there's like a specific best way to do it. I think, I would say this: find things that you personally are interested in, because that will drive you to be engaged with the guests. You'll ask good questions. It'll force you to do some homework, and then ask your audience what they want to listen to, what they want to hear about, and take their direction, take their feedback, and if we can ever help you guys make introductions to people or companies, like we're happy to help as well. But there's no specific formula. There's so much technology. Part of the fun part about doing the podcast and doing these events is it forces you to learn stuff, and you'll be like, wow, we did 30 shows and I had to learn about 30 new things. That's pretty cool. And, maybe your audience will sort of take that same challenge you do. Go learn one new thing a week, or go learn, one every month.
you also meet more interesting people.
Yeah, you meet a ton of interesting people. The other thing that I think people get afraid of is they feel like they have to be an expert on everything, not just know a little, but be an expert. That's almost impossible. It's be an expert at a couple things, even if you can be an expert in one, and just know enough about the other ones to know where to ask questions and stuff.
Yeah, I think that this is one of the most important is to really to ask good questions and try to let other people that doesn't understand the topics like you learn from your host or where
right.
Of the right people. Yeah. So
So let me ask you. One of the things that Aaron and I really want to do this year, and this is why we're so excited about today's show, is we want to learn kind of the specifics of regions of the world. What's you're covering cloud computing. Like, what are the big topics people are interested in just in that cloud computing space? Do you feel like do you feel like you're in the same time frame that maybe say the United States is, or what are the topics that are most interesting or most difficult for people right now for cloud computing in Israel?
I think that let's say the DevOps and the serverless areas are something that they are really hot today.
Also the AI in general.
Yeah, I think that also the voice-based services. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Started
Alexa types of things.
Yeah, Alexa and Google Assistant. They are really getting. People are trying to learn, but I think that in some aspects we are a little late. You have I think 1 or 2 talks about SRE, and I don't think that here in Israel we are there. Mm-hmm. So let's say in the technological things, the startups we had I think that 4 or 5 meetups around serverless. Okay, but in the other things, the big things, we are a little late.
In our podcast, we covered most of the big providers' technology. I mean, we had people from Amazon, people from
Google.
Yeah, we had people from Google. We also had a talk about Microsoft. We didn't have anyone from Microsoft, but we had a talk about Microsoft.
I talked to him yesterday, so they need to send people.
Yeah.
And we try to touch the layer technology. And that is maybe the hottest topics that we know that people are dealing with. I mean, as I told you before, it's a small place. I mean, we know almost everyone in the community. It's a small community. It's a few hundred people. So yeah.
I don't think 100, but yeah, a few thousands. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
are there?
And I know almost every one of them. Yeah. This is really a small one. Right. But the things that we are trying to do, at least for the community side, is to really to get more and more people.
Yeah.
One thing that I do, I lead also a group of a forum of knowledge in the government that try to do the same, like building a community in the government, and there is really more and more difficult to do it because it's not like startups that they have the drive and the young people that want to learn. In the government is little sometimes most of them are the opposite. Is in the state is the same?
Yeah. So I think the government in the United States is sort of mixed. Our defense and military and the kind of intelligence agencies are sort of unique in that they're not doing a lot of public sharing of what they're doing, classified information and so forth. But the rest of the government agencies are trying to modernize. A lot of them, especially the ones that face end users, so public health or different agencies that are interacting with citizens. They're trying to modernize. They want to get access to younger voters, or they want to share information more, maybe use big data to, take some healthcare cost out or something. So we're actually seeing them trying to be modern. There's a lot of interest from them in, containers and Kubernetes and serverless and DevOps. And, now they're not always, the most efficient at it. They're competing for engineers just like everybody else is. And the government doesn't always pay what, the technology companies do. But I've been impressed with the government in terms of trying to modernize technology the last few years, especially, they're getting away from being very bureaucratic and trying to be better. It's still a struggle, but, in general, they're trying to be on par with the enterprises. And the other thing we've seen is, a lot of the cloud providers here in the United States are realizing that the government has certain regulations that are unique. And so they're building them kind of mini clouds for, just government agencies. So like Amazon has something called GovCloud, which is, kind of specific for the U.S. government. Lots of other cloud providers are trying to build things like that. So it's a mix of, some innovation, some bureaucracy, but it's, the U.S. government is the largest customer in the world of technology. So everybody is always trying to sell things to them and get them to do new things, if nothing else.
Yeah, and here traditionally, Microsoft is very strong in these areas. Is the same in the States?
Yeah, Microsoft, obviously Microsoft has a huge presence. Lots of government applications are still written in .NET and Windows. But yeah, between Microsoft and AWS in terms of the cloud providers, those are the two that are really going after it. And then, we see every other big technology vendor trying to either partner with them or, figure out a way to work their technology around them.
We had earlier, Ariel spoke about companies that are born in the cloud and that adoption within startups is more natural and more easy. And we have the largest enterprises here in Israel, it's financial institutes. They are subjected to really harsh regulations. So, we don't see quite an adoption of the cloud within the core business of financial institutions. So bankings and credit companies, insurance companies, they're not really using the cloud for the core business. The hot data, it's not on the cloud just yet.
Yeah, we see similar. We see probably most of the, I would almost say most customers, banking customers as well, are doing things in the cloud. You could walk the hallways and find an Amazon project or an Azure project going on somewhere. Core banking is not in the cloud at this point. There's still so many things that are tied to the mainframe that just don't move. So yeah, we have very similar things there. But we are seeing, the banks and even the highly regulated things realize that there are things they do that aren't necessarily, as regulated. So, they can do some of their modeling in the cloud. They can, we have some of the regulatory agencies that have to do this big models. They're using the cloud and they're using, all the on-demand or really scalable, resources available to them. So it's, it really depends. We have a hard time saying, this industry uses the cloud exclusively and this one doesn't at all. Obviously the more sort of software centric, tech centric you are, you're probably beginning to use it more. But, we see interesting use cases in agencies or customers that you feel like are really old, that just said, hey, you know what, in order to survive, we have to use the cloud. So I don't know, we're surprised every day at how much people sometimes they feel like they're doing it because they have to use new technology, and sometimes it's just to make their business survive. And it's a very fluid time these days, which makes it interesting. It makes it fun.
Okay, so I think we'll recap.
And we should have a few more during the year.
Yeah, we should absolutely. Well, good. Well, guys, thank you for having me on today. I love the conversation. Like you said, I hope we can do this more often. And maybe what we can do is we can find other podcasts around the world that are doing cloud computing, and we'll all kind of have multi-way conversations. We'll do Asia and Europe and Israel and the Middle East and Canada, and it'd be fun to be doing this with lots of different people and have them on your podcast and you on theirs, and that'd be cool.
I speak also Spanish, so maybe we'll also.
Oh, there you go.
I was born in Argentina. Yeah.
There you go. So if you're a Spanish-speaking cloud podcast, we'll make an introduction. Well, cool. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much. Hey, real quick for my audience, what's the best place to find your podcast, and when will they? How frequently does it come out, and how can they learn about what you're doing?
Okay, so we started. We thought at the beginning that we will do it 1 and 2 weeks and 3 weeks, but we are doing lately every week.
Great.
And we are trying to make it every Sunday morning. We send it to our communities, and the website is www.cloudtalk.co.il. And we are also in the Facebook and Twitter. It's called CloudTalk IL, and in Hebrew is Medabrim Ananim. But CloudTalk IL, they can find us in every big social.
Okay, awesome. And we'll get all that in the show notes for folks that are want to go check it out. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was fun, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more podcasts, show notes, and everything social media. And visit acloud.guru for all your cloud training needs.